Okay. All right, Zoser just joined too.
Okay. So.
All right. Peace and love, y'all.
All right, peace and love, family.
Yeah, man. Is anybody else coming in? Okay, there goes somebody.
Yeah, that was Brother Zoser. From South Carolina.
Yeah, peace and love, brother.
Back.
How you doing?
All right, who back?
All back.
Yeah, let me know, Brother Terry, when you're ready for me to drop.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Tahuti just joined too.
Tahuti? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Peace and love, y'all. Peace and blessings. I'm Toriano ObaShango-El, and I was invited on the call, man, as a guest to explain some things to you. And Brother Terry asked me to explain so many words, eusanguinus, eusoli, importance of DNA, archaeology, anthropology, and, what they call it, craniomorphology, things of that nature in regards to the original groups of people, or the first group of people that populated the Americas and the succeeding successive groups thereafter. And Usoli, as it deals with the first land claim in regards to imperial history and colonization of the Americas. So everything that I give or will say can be easily verified and researched, scientific fact, things of that nature. So therefore, you can help. It'll help you to make an informed decision about this movement that's dealing with the Moors and whatnot, and how to have status and standing in accordance with law, and not only that, the international community, because they've already spoken on our behalf in regards to our status and standing on the land, and it's in the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples by the Organization of American States, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So, if you have any questions, that's really what I like to build off of. And so whatever questions you may have, ask your questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Okay. Hey, this is Brother Muthuta Toriano. Hey, man, glad to have you on the show. I'm glad you came. Brother Tedamoon Tyrion has been really bigging you up, man. He said, man, he could tie us all the way back into like Hannibal, and I'm like,
Brother Tedamoon out of Maryland.
No. Well, Tyrion. That's his Nuwaubian name.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My bad. I didn't mean to confuse anybody.
Okay.
But I was kind of wondering. You were mentioning, I think you said craniology, which has to do with the skull, right?
Yeah, craniomorphology.
Craniomorphology. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how are you using that to kind of tie us into the Americas here? And then, I guess my second question would be, how are you using craniomorphology to also tie us into our families, like our direct line, like our grandmothers, great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers? How does that all tie in? Because I find that very interesting.
Well, as far as your direct descent, as far as by the skull, I can't tie you in like that. But with craniomorphology, they can tell by the measurement of the skull, the shape of the skull. You have quite a few skull shapes. You have dolichocephalic, which means long head, long-shaped skull. You have what's called mesocephalic, which is the skull is not as long. And then that's where most of us are, mesocephalic. and you have what's called brachycephalic. Brachycephalic is the skull is shorter, the skull casing is shorter, and the facial aspect of the skull is wider. Now, brachycephalic, you find that more along the lines of so-called, quote-unquote, Africans, Australoid, people of that nature. And mesocephalic is like a combination of those people mixed in with what they call the proto-Mongoloid or the Mongoloid population, because most of them are brachycephalic. They have short skull cases and very wide faces. And when you look at these skulls, because of anthropology, archaeology, and you go basically, digging around in other parts of the world, you can pretty much see that, hey, this right here, this skull is particular, or this skull shape is particular to Group A, found in this part of the globe. This skull shape is more particular to Group B, things of that nature. Not only that, dental structure plays a part in that too. Like a lot of proto-Mongoloids have what's called shovel teeth, where their incisors are shaped like a shovel. It has a bold look, and on the back of the tooth it's kind of hollowed out like a shovel. When you dig down in the ground, you find that common amongst a lot of Mongoloids and those red Indians, who I'm not talking about the Europeans, the $5 Indians, but I'm talking about the ones of Mongoloid descent. And you find that common amongst a lot of us too, over here in the Americas. You don't find it too much in Africa. As a matter of fact, there's only a few groups that may carry it, like the Igbo people in Nigeria. Shovel tooth is found amongst them. And there's another group, I think, out of Ghana that is found too. But that trait is not an African trait. And so it's more along the lines of Siberian, East Asian, and whatnot. So if you find it in us, as well as those people in Asia, then that shows you that there was some admixture or genetic introgression a long time ago, many years ago, for that dental trait to show up in us. You understand what I'm saying? And when you're dealing with, not only that, when you're dealing with the skull, the brachycephalic is also found amongst the Southeast Asians and quote-unquote Austronesian people, like Melanesians and the Atars of the land they call the Philippines, the Odagaslimele of the land that they call Malaysia, the Andaman Islanders, Jarawa, the Mons of Southeast Asia, like Cambodia and Vietnam and all of that, all up in that area. So when you go and start doing the genetics of these people, now this is where it gets very interesting. Populations have ancestral informative or ancestry informative markers, which are known in science as single nucleotide polymorphism. And what happens is how single nucleotide polymorphisms come about is mutations in the DNA due to environmental pressures or adaptation of your environment. And it normally takes thousands and thousands and thousands of years for these type of micromutations to form in the genetics because of slow adaptation to the environment, and how it's passed on to the next generation is called natural selection. So if you got a people that's been in a specific area, let's say 50, 60,000 years, you know, and slowly their bodies start to adapt to their environment. Why? Because of the food you eat. Everything you put into your body is a chemical. Everything is a chemical. It's a chemical first and foremost. Why? because it's made up of the periodic table. So certain areas, they may have more calcium in their food. Some of them may have more potassium. Some may have more of this. Some may have more of that. And over the thousands of years, and plus the water may come from a source that's mineral rich. You know, certain minerals higher in that body of water than there are in other places around the globe. And then not only that, the sunlight in and of itself, man, plays a part in it as well, because as it reacts on the skin, it causes a chemical reaction. So all of these things go into a person's genetic mutation that creates the micromutations in their genes that are akin to their specific region of where they have been for thousands of years. And then these mutations are passed on from generation to generation to generation until they finally culminate into what's called a specific ancestry informative marker that is specific to those peoples of that given geographical region from the effects of the environment that has taken place upon them for thousands of years. And so when these people start migrating, they carry these ancestry informative markers with them. And as they go into other lands and they start mixing with other peoples, what's known as genetic introgression or admixture, they pass on that specific genetic information to their offspring, no matter who they may mix with. So that's how cranial morphology plays a part in populations around the globe. Going into genetics, going into migrations, going into genetic introgression or admixture, going into passing on that genetic information, that genetic code to the next offspring or population.
Wow, man, you said a mouthful there. That was fascinating. Yeah.
Some good information right there.
When you said that when a group of people grow up in a certain area and you said the environment, you know, like the water, the food that you eat, you said that creates a certain genetic, a certain gene kind of spawn forth from that. What do scientists call that when you have a specific gene that relates to people in a certain area, and then that gene is passed on? I'm guessing they use that gene to kind of trace you back.
Yes, it's called single nucleotide polymorphism.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look that up. Okay, all right. Absolutely.
And it comes about. It's not overnight. It's an adaptation over time that causes the gene to mutate. Because nature is always looking to improve on itself. That's why we adapt. If nature was not built to improve upon itself, a lot of us would have died, because I won't give you a perfect example. At one point in time, malaria was bad throughout the entire Americas, from north to south. And the first known place for malaria to actually be found was here in the Americas. It was found in a mosquito trapped in some amber, and it was about maybe 10 to 15 million years ago, somewhere up in there. And malaria is caused by P. vivax. P. vivax is I think either a bacteria. I think it's a bacteria or a virus, something like that. Don't quote me, but P. vivax. P. vivax is the entity that's responsible for malaria. And the oldest place it was found was here in the Americas. Now, we do know that we've been present in the Americas for millions of years. And I'm not just talking about just saying, you know, we've been here for millions of years, like a lot of these other Moors are saying, you know, Terrell, no one that I'm talking about, you know, she always speaking this stuff, but you ain't got no facts. You have no proof. No. If you go down to South America, there was a man named Florentino Ameghino, and he had a brother named Carlos Ameghino. And this was back in the 1800s. They was doing archaeology down in Argentina. And what they found was anatomically modern human bones remain. Anatomically modern human means we're not talking about a bipedal hominid or upright walking form of man. No, we're talking anatomically modern human, just like you and I today. And they found, I want to say, the atlas bone of one that was 3.59 million years old, and they found a fully human fossilized jaw fragment that was dated at 5 million years old. And they also found tools. They found spear tips. All of this stuff was 5+ million years old, showing you that there was a presence of human activity as well as a human population going on back then that far. And what they did was, when they was digging into the earth, they had dug down to a certain level, and each level has a time frame of when it formed. And that's when they had found a lot of these relics and human remains between 3.5 and 5 million years ago. They found older sites of where there was human activity going on that was about 14 million years old, 14 million years ago. So all of this shows that there was a human presence, anatomically modern human presence here in the Americas. And I got evidence of some that's even older than that, but we'll just stick right now to this. So if malaria was in the Americas 10 to 15 million years ago, 10 to 15 million years ago, and human presence or human activity was here, roughly that same time. Well, the way malaria operates is if you catch it, either you survive or you die. Those who did have malaria back in that time frame and didn't die from it, caught it and didn't die from it, and had, because your body, your body builds what's called antibodies and things of that nature, naturally, to try to fight off illness and disease. Now you go into a process of what's known as natural selection. Let's say a man caught it, he didn't die. His brother might have died, but he didn't die. A woman caught it, she didn't die. Her mother might have caught it and died, but she didn't die. Both of those two come together, and they have a child. That child will have in his system, through his genetic makeup, the natural antibody that caused both his mother and his father not to die from malaria. And then it goes on to have a child with somebody who caught it but didn't die. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is what's called environmental pressures. What are the environmental pressures? Malaria. What is the natural selection? The ones who didn't die from it. What is the adaptation? The offspring who now carries that within his genetics.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing that how the body does adapt to, environments and finds a way, like you said, through natural selection to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's why they kept saying in the movie Jurassic Park, I think all the dinosaurs were female.
Oh, and about the reproducing. Yeah, I remember this part.
And then next thing you know, the guy saw little baby footprints of a dinosaur, meaning one of them had changed his sex to a male, just like lizards do. Some lizards have that capability. They thought they had written it out of the genetic code of the dinosaurs when they cloned it, but they didn't. And the guy said his famous words was, "Nature always finds a way."
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, it's always looking to improve upon itself. It's a progressive It's a progressive law of the universe. It constantly is always looking to improve on itself. All right. So, with these ancestry informative markers, and you go into the DNA, then through single nucleotide polymorphisms that are population specific, those that are population specific, you can tell where those specific ones came from. Why? Because they've been charted in that population. So at some point in time, for these to end up in, quote-unquote, African-American peoples that they brought over from, quote-unquote, Africa on the bottom of a boat, how did these end up in our genetic makeup? You understand what I'm saying? The only way they could have ended up in our genetic makeup is through genetic introgression, i.e. admixture. That's it. And it's known historically in archaeologically that the people of the Pacific, now what I'm going to tell you, it may blow your mind. Mm-hmm. The people of the Pacific have a maritime history that goes all the way back to 900,000 years ago.
The Shang Dynasty?
No. Shang Dynasty wasn't even nowhere in the imagination of men.
Let me ask you this. You said how long ago that was, the Oriental Benoville?
I said the people of the Pacific have a
islands, right?
The lands out in the Pacific, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
Yeah. All of those places. Mm-hmm. Australia. They have a history of maritime activity 900,000 years ago. You can go and research it. I have it in the OneDrive. It's called Ancient Maritime Activity. The Flores Islands is about 11 miles off the coast of Indonesia. Okay? And you can't swim there. It had human activity on there that dated back roughly to 900,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The only way you could get there back then, because the Flores Islands was not connected to the mainland of Indonesia. Indonesia is right next door to Papua New Guinea. It's right next door to New Guinea. Mm-hmm. The only way you could get there is by seafaring. So, if those people have a seafaring history of 900,000 years ago, we know that there are currents in the Pacific Ocean, just like it is in the Atlantic Ocean, that will take you to various places. All you got to do is put your boat in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How did we get Pacific DNA in our autosomal makeup? Those people had to have sailed here thousands of years ago. And they mixed in with the original population. Just like the northeastern Siberian Proto-Mongoloid, the dark-skinned people, they got the straight hair, but they look Asiatic like the Chinese, but they're the original people of Asia, black as hell, dark as hell. Mm-hmm. How did we get their autosomal makeup into our genetic ancestry? You understand what I'm saying? So, very people that they're calling African American cannot be African in the sense of how they said they brought us over here in a boat. You know why?
Hell no.
Because, quote unquote, according to them, when you was brought into the dock, that was a controlled environment. You were auctioned off. You was brought to a plantation. You was either forced to breed or forced to work until you died. Most of these other groups, the Proto-Mongoloid, never ventured or migrated too far down south. Follow me where I'm going with this. The Melanesians and Austronesians never ventured or migrated too far down south in, quote unquote, the recorded time of post-Columbian history. What that means is there was already a population of people here that phenotypically looked like what you call, quote unquote, African, tall, stocky, robust, deeply melanated. That was here first and foremost, along with the Australoids, the people of Australia, because some of us carry their gene pool. I do. The people that they call Australian Aborigine, I carry their gene pool, as well as the Austronesian, Melanesian, and the people of Southeast Asia, and the Proto-Mongoloid. And this was already a melting pot. The land called America was already a melting pot of melanated people from various parts of the globe long before pale-skinned people even came on the planet. The genes that control pigmentation, hair color, eye color, SLC24A5, SLC45A2, HERT2, OCA2, MCR1, those genes did not begin to mutate to create pale people until roughly in the area between 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. Prior to that, light-skinned and pale people didn't exist. Mutations hadn't happened in the genes yet. You can find this information through Dr. Keith Chang, a geneticist at Keith Chang, C-H-A-N-G.
Oh, Chang, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, at University of Pitt University up there in Pennsylvania, and Dr. Luigi Luca Cavalli Sforza, geneticist emeritus at Stanford University. And they tell you this in their outlay of genetics and their mutation. Prior to that, they didn't exist. Yeah. So this land was already a melting pot of, once again, the paleo, quote unquote, and this is just for scientific purposes, the Paleo-American Negroid that look like you and I today, the Australoid that look like the Australian Aborigine, the Austronesian, which looks like the Melanesians and the people of Fiji, and the Papuans of Papua New Guinea, and the Southeast Asian, what they call the Negritos, i.e. little blacks. Now, once again, me dialoguing with y'all, this is not in law. This is just common vernacular, us speaking amongst each other. So I know what black means. Black means deaf, but this is just common vernacular. The people like the Orangosli Malay, the Jarawa. The Jarawa have been living on the Andaman Islanders, been living there for like 60,000 years in the Indian Ocean. And you can look them up, as well as the Jarawa. And there's another group of people, I can't think of their name, but they so territorial that it's against international law to even go to their island because they'll kill you. But they stay up in the Indian Ocean too. All of these people, man, are super, super, super dark. The Mons of Southeast Asia, i.e. Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, Thailand, the little black people there, and the next group of people, the northeastern Siberian Mongolia, Proto-Mongoloid, dark-skinned people like the Ket people, and the Chukchi people. You can look these people up. The originals of them, man, dark as hell. And then you had what was called the Proto-Europoid. They came out of like England, and the Brahma man that came out of like Spain. These was dark-skinned people in Spain and both the British Isles, super, super dark, but had naturally blue eyes.
Interesting.
That's when the mutations start. Now, slowly, when the mutations started to come in through those groups of people, as well as the Matola Sweeten finds, where the original people of Scandinavia were dark skinned with blue eyes. So, some of these people migrated to the Americas, coming down through the northeastern corridor, island hopping, coming over through Iceland, through Greenland, through what they call today Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, coming on down that eastern seaboard into Massachusetts and all of that, man, settling in Virginia as well. This stuff happened, man, and cut off at around about a period of 11,000, 10,000 years ago. And this land was already a melting pot of melanated people. So how we got these various markers in our DNA is through genetic admixture, what they call introgression. Or introgression is another people coming in with new genetic information and mixing in with the previous population. The last to really mix in with us was the European. And you also had the ancient African empires coming in, such as Kemet that come over here, as well as Kush, through the cocaine mummies. They found some mummies, 134 mummies over there in Kemet with cocaine and tobacco in their system. And both of those plants are indigenous to the Americas. They found corn in Nigeria. Corn is indigenous to the Americas. That when once excavated, corn was found at a level that's older than the city of Ile-Ife, the city of the Orishas, over there in Nigeria. So what shows an ancient American/African connection going back and forth for thousands of years. So when you tie all this archaeology, anthropology, genetic studies into this thing, craniomorphology, and even the study of the teeth, you find out, man, where these connections came from, not only that, where they have gone. Because how is it, like I said, that the Igbo people, Nigeria, have shovel teeth, and only one other group thus far in Ghana have shovel teeth, but none of the other people in Africa, man, or none of the other groups in Africa known to have it, which means that some of us left the Americas thousands of years ago and migrated over there. Now, around about 12 to 13,000 years ago, there was a comet that struck around about the area of South Carolina, northeastern Georgia, and it was so powerful that it basically made a lot of the land in North America uninhabitable. And the effects of the comet were found all the way down there in Antarctica. And what it did was it caused such a climactic effect that it created what was called dryas periods, dryas, D-R-Y-A-S. And what these dryas periods are known for is creating many ice ages, small ice ages. So at the time, when the Mongoloids did come over here, after the ice age had receded,
My
Hello?
bad, y'all. Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Okay. When the ice age did begin to recede, and the northeastern Siberian/Proto-Mongoloid was able to come down into the Americas, it was before the comet had struck. And then, when the comet had struck, a lot of us had to leave. And we actually went further down south, like southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, all of that, going down into South America. And some of us even left and went to Africa. That's how the Igbo people got that, as well as that other group in Ghana. You know, they put the genetic traits over there. So it's a very interesting history, man. There's a lot to be told from genetics, archaeology, and anthropology. So, next question.
Okay. Gave the rundown on the genetics and the anthropology and everything. Can you touch on a very sensitive subject of how the Moors want to differentiate between, when I'm saying it this way, when we're going against each other, saying we're different from one another, when we have an example of somebody that looked like us come over and annex the land into the empire. Can you touch on that?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to start at the annexation first, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, we do know that Medunetia has been found, pretty much all over, man. The Grand Canyon. They even said it was found as far as Australia, which showed you that at one point in time, certain period of time, man, Egyptians was all over the place. But the greatest seafarers ever known as far as trade and commerce were those people known as, i.e., the Canaanites, who became known as the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians are the ones that set up Carthage, or Carthage, as is known as in Medunetia, Carthage, and Canaanite as well. Medunetia and Canaanite is pretty much very similar. Later on, they went on to spread into the Iberian Peninsula, known as Iberia, or land of the Ibri, which is another name for Hebrew. There's plenty writing over there, man, what they call Paleo-Hebrew Canaanite. They also known as Punic. They also call it Punic Iberian. And Punic Iberia became a territory of Carthage. Around about 500 BC, there was a Carthaginian king, sea king, and his name was Hanno the Navigator. Hanno the Navigator had sailed to America, and he had placed a stone in Comassacuncana, Cape Cod Bay, Massachusetts, called the Born Stone today, known as the Born Stone. But there was Punic Iberian script on the stone, and it said, a proclamation of annexation. Do not deface. With this, Hanno takes possession. And basically, he landmarked the land and annexed the entire Americas to the Carthaginian Empire in the east. Now, not only was there stones of Punic Iberian writing there, they found one in Rhode Island called, I think it's in Rhode Island, or it might be in Massachusetts, called the Apuxet Stone. Prior to that, in 800 BC, there was a stone placed here by Carthaginian ancestors, and it's right next door in Oklahoma, and it's known as the Pontotoc Stele, and it talks about Baal or Baal Ra, or Baal Ra, the god of the sun, and it's very similar to, I think it's Psalms 102 or 104 in the Bible, was written on the Pontotoc Stele. Further up the Mississippi River, further up north, traveling on the Mississippi River, there was one called the Davenport Stele that was found in a burial mound, and it had the rites of Osiris on that stone. It was found in 1874. It had the opening of the mouth ceremony. And you had Punic Iberian script or Phoenician script found down in Uruguay. So it was traveling all over this land and landmark. So that's how the land is annexed to the empire under what they call Yah's law, or the laws of the scriptures in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 14. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 17. Proverbs 22, verse 28. Proverbs 23:10. I think it's the book of Hosea, chapter 5, verse 10. Y'all can go look those up. They deal with landmarks. Don't quote me on the last one, but I think it's Hosea chapter 5, verse 10. Okay? And all of them talk about landmarks, and once the land is marked, it's set up for the inheritance of a people or someone. And so it tells you that if you move the landmarks, then the Most High is going to move you. So as far as us being Moors, or back then there wasn't Moors, it's Moors. There was Mari, Maure, or Maro, Mauro. Yes, we are Moors underneath the ancient land claim. But as the Empress taught us, Empress Bertiasi, we're actually Moors from the ancient land of Mu. Mu was in the Pacific. And we are the ones known as the mound builders. So are we both Mores, Moros, or Moor and Moors? The blood has been tied so much that we're both. You are what your ancestors were. You can't separate your ancestors genetically. You are the composite of them today. So you have what's known as two types of title. You have ancient aboriginal title coursing through your veins. Why? Because the law teaches maxims of law, Bouvier's Dictionary of Law, 1856, maxims of law, Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition revised, 1968. You can go and look these up. One maxim says, land lying unoccupied is given to the first occupant. And it says, what land belongs to no one, by natural reason, belongs to the first occupant. And there's another one that says, what belongs to no one is given to the first occupant. There's another maxim of law that says, the air is one and the same with the ancestor. There's another maxim of law that says, what is first is true, and what is first in time is better in law. There's another maxim of law that says, monuments, which we call records, are vestiges of truth and antiquity. These are maxims of law.
Yeah.
And so far, what you done demonstrated is the evidence from the archaeology, the bones, how it tied into genetics, and you just touched on the ancient land claim, which tied back into the blood, because you can't separate it once it's already been mixed, and you tied us into the law. So that's really safe to say, in layman terms, like I like to say sometimes, if you have children, right? And now let's say this man has children, and the ones in the house with him all got his name.
Right.
But then when something happened to him or whatever, it's another one that just show up that ain't nobody sure about, and you want some of what the house children got.
Right.
What do you got to do?
By
you got
right
to
of
make
blood?
sure that blood. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right of blood. And we got you just for a few more minutes. Can you touch on your 10 or 11? Can you touch on that? Because I've explained it to him best as I could. But can you run through it and then really touch on that state level with the 2 ounces and that federal level with the 22?
Yeah, I got you, family.
Okay.
I have a process that's on my website, and we've been using it for a while now. And basically, what it does is it's designed for you, man, to correct the status in accordance with the rights of blood and your your heirship by blood to this land, and to protect yourself from these rogue entities known as the states of and the United States. And first, what you do is you do DNA. The reason why you do DNA for all that I just explained prior to that. Then you send it off to various groups of people just to give them notice. And you can either file it after they've been given notice then, or you can wait until you do your bond. Your bonds are designed to protect you, man, from the political fraud that they set up under the 14th Amendment, which was never ratified, and that's how they stole your estate from you, through the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment, you can own nothing, can't own anything. Why? Because slaves have no rights. Property cannot own property. And not only that, it is designed to keep you a perpetual debt slave, the 14th Amendment is, until you die. Now, once you put these bonds in the various places, you know, at the state level and the federal level, all you got to do is just give them notice. If they keep it more than a certain length of time, and the time is written in the bond, then it's already deemed as accepted. And not only that, the bond is submitted under equity because of UCC 1-103. Equity looks as that which should be done as already having been done. So they got to come back and refute the bond under affirmation of penalties of perjury, which they're not going to do. And once you put your bonds in the places and you secure your assets via UCC and their obligation to perform underneath that, then what you do is you go and get congressional records. That's the last part of the process that Brother Toriano is talking about that I got on my site. So you're going to get the records pertaining to the United States bankruptcy. You want them always under seal, underneath the congressional seal. Why? Because that means that they got to argue with their own shit. That's their word. And I don't think they're going to do that because it's coming from the archive sealed. All right? There's records dealing with the 14th Amendment fraud. The Georgia State Archives has a record. Library of Congress has a record. The bankruptcy, congressional records. Library of Congress has those records. The United States overthrowing a republic to become a democracy and pulling a coup d'etat. Library of Congress has those records as well. And you want all of these records to show and prove the fraud. Even with the Federal Reserve being bankrupt and the Treasury being bankrupt, Library of Congress has those records. Now, as far as the National Archives, you want to get the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1836 and 1787, as well as the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Why do you want the treaty? Because the treaty is made for Moors. Because Morocco was the inheritor of the Carthaginian Empire. They came out of the Carthaginian Empire. Morocco did. So therefore, they're the former inheritors or possessors of the Jus Soli title. Okay? And the Constitution says treaties are the supreme law of the land. Okay? So that's the reason why you want that. And the foundation, like I said, all circulates around your blood birthright of who you are. And then the steps there afterwards you take to secure your position. And that's it.
So does that directly tie into the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and that the land got annexed from the Carthaginian Empire? Is there another link that's needed to something more current, like maybe within the last couple hundred years that our tribe, or nothing else is needed? Okay.
Nope. Because I'll give you an example. We're going to take the Bible story of Jesus, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Esau, if you're a Muslim. Yeshua, if you're a Hebrew. Jesus, if you're a Christian. All right. When Jesus was born, he was born in Bethlehem, right?
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whose jurisdiction was Bethlehem under? Was it Israel's?
Rome. It was Rome, wasn't it?
Rome, exactly. It was Rome.
Hmm.
So you so leave, what was Jesus' nationality?
Romans.
Thank you. Eusanguinus, what was his blood? What was his eusanguinous status?
Israelite.
Israelite Moabite. And there you have it. It's the same over here. The land has already been claimed. The United States said in 1983, well, actually October of 1982, they declared the Bible as the Word of God. 1983 was the year of the Bible. So if the law pertaining to landmarks said, don't you move them, don't you touch them, if you do, you're going to get cursed dead. And they say that Congress did that the Bible is the Word of God, and Morocco descended out of Carthage. Who's the lawful possessor of the Jus Soli title?
Morocco.
Yeah.
Thank you. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that you can find the Bible being passed into law at United States Statutes at Large, 96 Stat 1211. And those verses I gave you earlier, go look them up. They'll tell you about landmarks. And then look up Matthew 5:17, what Isa, Yeshua, Jesus said about the law of Moses. He said, you still under the law. He said, heaven and earth will pass away before anything be changed or removed from the law. So guess what? The law yesterday pertaining to landmarks is still the law today. And now it's recognized as the law because Congress recognized the Bible as the Word of God and made it statutory law.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff, man. Hopping on us today. We got a lot of homework to do.
Yeah, man. I told you that one drive, boy. I was sitting here looking at the Krakens while he was talking, man. It was like when he was saying that about the blood, and they hadn't been around probably about 12,000 years. If you do your DNA, you do it through the 23andMe, they'll give you mitochondrial to you. And the only thing I did so far, I just went through the Krakens and found my sequence, and that automatically tied me in with the pygmies over there in Tennessee for about 125 to about 180,000 years. I mean, just like that, just by looking at the mitochondria.
Yeah, at the deepest excavated level, they found them in Tennessee at 40,000 years old. They present. They said they were recorded in history as being here all the way up to about 3,000 BC. No, excuse me, not 3,000 BC, but 1,000 BC, which is 3,000 years ago. They said they were recording in history that, in other words, when the people came here, they saw these little people. Now, the only ones that I know of thus far to have the pygmies and their history and their oral tradition is the Cherokee. They call them Young Witch-Sunday. But see, here's the thing about it. This is why I tell people to be careful about calling themselves them tribes. If you recording that when you got here, you saw these little people, then how can you be indigenous to this land? How can the name Cherokee or Untitled be indigenous to this land if you have your oral tradition that you saw these people when you came here?
Right. It was something foreign to you.
Thank you. So a lot of these tribes are foreign. Now, granted, if they do their DNA, their structure probably going to look very similar man to mine. But the name Untitled, Chata, Catawba, Yamasi, Nadine, Hende, Chickasaw, Chickasaw, all these various names, I ask the tribes all the time, how old is that name up on this land? Oh, man, we've always been here. I ain't talking about that. How old is that name up on this land? Show me epigraphical evidence or evidence written in stone that a language evolved here from which that name is derived from, and they never can prove it. When I compare it to the pygmy skulls, I say, show me. They never can prove it.
So what you're saying is you can really tie up your own claim by using that name, not because you're not necessarily that, but because that particular name wasn't old enough to be here, according to your how old your DNA might be.
And the archaeology and the anthropology, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tried to tell old hard-head ass Ninty, but she didn't want to listen. And ain't got no blood on the table. Even if you go to Article 28, Section 2, in the Organization of American States, American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it talks about genetic resources for establishing who you are. Even if you go to Article 31 in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it tells you about genetic evidence for establishing who you are. Why would two international bodies speak on behalf of indigenous people and include genetics in both documents?
Because it's irrefutable evidence.
That's right. In law, genetics is known as incontrovertible evidence.
Mm-hmm.
What's that evidence rule you be saying? Federal Evidence Rule 702?
Yeah, Federal Rules of Evidence 702.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Damn. Federal Rules of Evidence 702. Okay.
Okay. 702.
Wow, man. So that 20. So I know Terra Moon. You went to the 23andMe. How much did that cost you?
Mm-hmm. I got one for $100.
Yeah,
$100.
Yeah, to mail it back like $108.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, 108.
Okay. But what you really want is the genetic information, so you can use that to tie you into whatever genetic sequence you derive from in this land, or
you want the single nucleotide polymorphism. That's what you're looking for, which leads to ancestry informative markers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to do that when I get paid, man.
Yeah.
Rule 702, testimony by expert witnesses. A witness who is qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise if A, the expert scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue. B, the testimony is based on sufficient facts or data. C, the testimony is a product of reliable principles and methods. And D, the expert has reliably applied the principles and methods to the facts of the case. The brother has basically an in-house geneticist. So just like you see on TV on Matlock and all that kind of stuff, when they really want to lock somebody up, they bring a psychiatrist in there to see if the joker was crazy or not. And the court use his testimony. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
So we might have to call in Toriano, man, to speak on our behalf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. My teacher took me under his wing. He started teaching me genetics 5 years ago. A little over 5 years ago. The brother named Tyrone Cannon. He's our geneticist. Yeah, he studied genetics at the University of Perth. He took courses in genetics. Not only that, he's a championship dog breeder. So he has to know about genetic origins and lineages of the dog and all that type of stuff. You know, they break it down, what species it has. Because every animal has polymorphism. All mammals do. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, and not only that, the sub-Saharan African ancestry that shows up on the gene is actually Paleo-American Negroid ancestry, you know, for lack of a better term, because none of the genetic sequences, man, have exact matches for the various groups that they have testing for in Africa. Shows not detected. But you share ancestry informative markers that are very common, but the single nucleotide polymorphism, which are ancestry informative markers, we've been separated for so long that we're looking at us, man, being evolved into another group. And how I know this to be a fact because there's a genetic report, a white paper from one genetic institute from the United States, you know, because they fund genetics heavily. And this is called The Making of the Mitochondrial DNA Landscape. L1C is a haplogroup that's about 60,000 years old, and it has various subclasses, okay? In the genetic database, over a third of haplogroup L1C, mitochondrial L1C, belongs to African American. And few of those, when compared to its African counterpart L1C, shows any matches whatsoever.
So we just something different.
So at the least, we know the African L1C and the so-called African American L1C has been separated for at least 60,000 years. And keep in mind, L1C comes out of L1. L1 comes out of L1 through 6. So L1C at the least has been separated from its African counterpart for at least 60,000 years. But if you take into account its ancestors, it could be even older than that in regards to a separation.
And that's a haplogroup.
Yeah, mitochondria.
Mitochondria haplogroup.
So I hope I was able to answer y'all questions and curiosity. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I wanted to throw in one more thing I was kind of curious about, because, you know, the lands of the earth, I guess, millions of years ago was this one piece of, is like a giant landmass, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about people migrating from, I don't, you know, I guess I'm trying to tie in Africa, North America, and South America, because it looked like South America was kind of attached to what they're calling Africa today.
They're saying the last time it was connected, geological-wise, through geological studies, was about 250 million years ago. Now, they have found archaeological artifacts, what they call out-of-place artifacts, that are like a hammer that they found, I think, in Lebanon, Texas, or Palestine, Texas, something like that. The hammer was 500 million years old. They found the skull up in Pennsylvania, buried in the coal strata. Now, you know, it takes coal millions of years to form. The skull was roughly about 280 million years old, something like that. So,
wow.
Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of things, you know, that can be brought forward, but when you're going in under Rule 702, you want to have your concrete science to it to bring it forward. But, yeah, there was human habitation, you know, and there was migrating back and forth. You know, there was human habitation on the planet that old, yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, because Dr. York always talked about that, you know, that people basically was on both sides of the continent when it separated.
Yeah. I remember Dr. York back in the 80s, man. You know, my old dad thought I took my Shahada when it was answer to Allah. But as he started to change and evolve things, man, here's the thing. You just can't say things. When you're dealing in law, you have to prove everything you say. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, to say it without proof, it has no merit. You know, for Dr. York to be saying these things, and then you got to keep in mind, he was reading a lot of other people's books and just translating it into, now this was back in the 90s, this I know for a fact. He was reading a lot of people's information, and basically, man, you know, I mean, I want to hear this, but he was plagiarizing people's stuff too. He's a fact. Books that was already out there, you know, and bringing it to our people, who a lot of us didn't know any better, you know, in a sense where it was digestible to us, but you never cited your source. You got to cite your source, you know. So this is where the cleanup begins, whereas now you got to learn the sources of this information. And that way, if you have to use it in a court of, well, it's not no such thing as a court of law, because all this shit is a corporation, but in a so-called court of law, now you can bring forth the statement backed by the fact. You follow what I'm saying? That's why they have what's called the rules of evidence.
Mm-hmm. Right. And yeah, we're familiar. Well, I don't know if Dr. York plagiarized, but I am familiar that he did read a lot of other. Everybody on the line is pretty familiar with him bringing stuff together to present to the people.
But if you listen to me, if you don't cite the source and you're saying the same thing that somebody previously published, that's called plagiarism. You got to cite your source, man. You have to cite your source. Otherwise, it could be discredited because you're not the author of that source. This is just the way the law works.
I get that too. Yeah, if he did, he should have a bibliography where he's stating his references to where he's getting information.
Some of the scrolls do have a bibliography in them. Not enough of them, though.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. There's a lot, man, that has information that's not cited, and that's what. Although his how should I say, his relating the information to you could be true, but if it's ever called up on for evidence in a court of law, if the source is not cited, they can discredit it. You see what I'm saying? This is what we're dealing with. Although we know they rolled, we know the Europeans rolled, we know all that stuff, we still have to be in honor. We have to be in honor.
Absolutely.
The more you're in honor, the more that you are in honor, the better your chances are for winning your case, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, that was a lot of good stuff today, Brother Toriano. Man, I thank you for coming on the conference call, man. It's an eye-opener.
Oh, man, not a problem, man. I thank Brother Carrion for inviting me. I got a lot of stuff, man, in the OneDrive, in the archaeology anthropology folder. Y'all, man, feel free to go through it. I got a lot of stuff in the historical readings and other documents folder. Feel free to go through it, man, and in the law and related matters folder, too. But I got a lot of stuff. It's almost 60 gigs of information on that drive, so y'all just, man, feel free to go through it, man. It's there for y'all to use and study.
Okay. Damn, 60 gigs, man. That's a lot of information.
I told you it was heavy. I told you it was heavy.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of documents. Yeah, there's a lot of documents, bro.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's for y'all, man. I did that for my people.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your hard work.
Oh, man, not a problem. Thank you for your appreciation, man. Man, Brother Terry, thank you for having me once again, brother.
Hey, man, it's all love, bro. Like, I tell anybody, I've been trying to decipher this stuff since like 2012. But when I seen yours, it started to bring it all, it started making everything make sense. Because even if you don't know a whole lot about it, you can kind of know when you see something that makes sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And for the way my mind work and the way these brothers' mind work on this call, man, they can't argue with themselves. At the very least, they can try to argue with themselves, but I doubt they will. And on the other hand, if they don't say that the Bible is the word of God and they don't put it in the law, according to nature's law and natural law, man, they just gonna be outside of honor.
That's right.
And that make it work for us.
That's right. That's
and
right.
that's the way that it ain't by me looking at it. How it's in the OneDrive, this is first page. You leave them nothing to argue about. Nothing.
Nope. Nothing.
I take my hat off to you, man. Cause I told you that morning, man. Like I'm sure I got a few more grays in my beard, but me and these brothers be trying to go through the scroll. I be trying to read the OneDrive. I'm trying to look at Prince. All of us trying to read Prince Uriel Bay book. Man,